After watching the recent Stranger Things, I was inspired to create a VR game. So I set myself 24 hours to make all the art, do all the code, and then see what I had at the end. I had to create some custom models, so I had to do the vines, and I also had to create the doorway as well, which I really wanted in the scene. And then once I had all of the artwork together, I brought it all into Unity and started laying out the environment. So let's jump into Unity and see where I got to. So this is where I've got to at the moment. You can see I've got my environment populated and the game is ready to go. And it's looking really cool. Obviously I only had 24 hours for this, so I didn't have much time to spend on the art, but I managed to get some quick wins, and the skybox was one of those. If we go to the lighting tab and look at my environment, I've got this skybox material, Stranger Sky. And if I click on that, you can see all it is a skybox panoramic material. And what I've done is I've added a tint color to it, and that's literally it. That's what gives it its look. Without it, save that a minute. Without it, it just kind of looks like normal light. Just be like that, and then with it, well, I call that the Stranger Things button. Makes it insta cool. That was one of the first things that instantly made it look like it's from the show. And then I just looked at some reference that I could find online for that scene where I think Max and Eleven are, this might be some spoilers by the way, in the Upside Down, and you're in this kind of area, it's very red and there's like these vines and like bits of the house, and I wanted to bring in some key bits of those, and those were like the stairs, the clock here, and also the doorway with the stained glass window in it. So custom art wise, we've got the vines, which have got this cool shader on, made in shader graph. You can see all kind of ripply like that, and that goes for the weirdy, I don't know what these are called, all them weird tree trunk things. You can see I've got a material that makes them look like they're alive and a bit more organic, and that's all just done in shader graph. And then looks a bit brutal, we've got my bat. There's going to be some carnage going on in a second, and I'll explain more about that when we're in VR. I didn't really know what game I wanted to make when I first started this. I just know I knew I wanted to make something. So from here, once I got all the art assets in, I thought about a very simple game where I could just have the Demogorgons, they'd spawn into the scene and you just have to beat the devil out of them. And that, as you can see there, we've got a wave counter to tell you how far you've got. And then once you die, you've got 5 lives. Once you've been hit by 5 times by the Demogorgons, it's game over. All this project is available on my Patreon page. There's a build up there for like the first tier members where you can actually play it, and then mid tier will be the actual Unity project and the build as well. And you can do what you want with it. So let's jump into VR. Let's take a look at what we've put together. So hopefully the audio is okay. Here I am in the scene. Here's my bat. I wanted to do something a little bit different with the health, rather than having like health written up there. But I've actually got these parts on the bat. I don't know why I'm pointing because I can't see my hand. But I've got 5 lives, so when I'm hit, each one of these lives come off the bat, which I thought is a bit different. So everything looks great in VR. I've got the clock going round. And it's just kind of eerie and atmospheric, and the music really adds to that. And then the shader works really well on the vines too. So then when I go ahead and hit start, everything's going to happen. I'm going to get Demogorgons coming at my face. Oops. Ah! Okay, so they can approach from anywhere. I've got 5 spawn locations all dotted around. Guys coming at me. And you just whack them. And the idea is just to survive as long as you can. Turns on a ragdoll when you hit him, and sometimes you get some weird effects. And then the bell, the ding, signifies that the wave has increased. So now the enemies are going to be spawning a little bit quicker. Still got my 5 lives. Ah! Where did he come from? And I think each wave is about 30 seconds, I think I said it to. Wave 3. I can hear it, it's coming. I think it's behind this wall. Oh no, it's there. Oh no! Batted him so high, he sat down and bounced. Look! Gonna get one to take off. Oh, wave 4, this is going well. I think wave 8 is the most I got to. I've been hit 3 times. Eat dirt, Demogorgon. Ah. Where is it? Can you hear it? Wave 5. Getting stressful. Where are you? Oh, I got hit. And it's game over. And you get the 4 chimes there from the clock. So there we go. I had great fun making this game. The Stranger Things was a great show. I love watching it. And I just wanted to do something. Just a little fan game. So for those of you that are interested, there really isn't a lot going on. So we've got a game manager. So I'll go into a little bit of the technical side of it. Very simply put together. We've got a game manager, and this isn't really doing very much in this instance. It's kind of monitoring when there's some events that fire when the game started and when the game's over. Actually, the most tricky thing was probably the enemy, I'm going to say the enemy kind of AI state machine stuff. And even that's not really complicated. It's just got 2 states really. It's either running or attacking or dead. So there's only a few states that it's monitoring there, and it's just using the nav mesh system. So we're using a nav agent to set a destination, which then runs to the player, and then when it's within range of the player, it then changes its animation and its state to the attacking state, where it just tries to beat the living daylights out of me. The object spawner, that's actually comprised of several components. So rather than try and do it all in one class, I've got my object spawn, which is responsible for the timing and the spawning of the enemies. And then over time, I'm increasing that spawn rate, or decreasing the spawn rate rather, or the spawn interval. So it reduces the time in which enemies are spawned. I think it starts off at there's an enemy spawned every 4 seconds. And then every round, that spawn time will come down, so more enemies are effectively spawned. I'm then counting the waves, and that's based on some events that are called from my increased spawn over time, which is basically keeping track of each round. And as soon as that round's over, the wave counter is increased. And then remove enemies, just a simple class that gets all the enemies spawned between the rounds and removes them, so it gives you a bit of a breather before the next round starts. The only thing I wasn't really happy with was my club. The artwork's cool, but I think to do it justice, it needs a bit more time. Because at the moment you kind of hit the enemy, and I put a health bar over their head, and you need to kind of hit them twice. If I put the enemy prefab in the scene, this is my enemy. Look at that. What a beautiful mouth. You can see here that on my enemy script, we've got a health amount. All I need to do is change this to like 50, and you'll need to hit him 5 times, because only 10% of this bar is removed every time you hit. But yeah, I kind of wish that I didn't use a club, because it works on collision. So once it hits an enemy or any associated collider on that enemy, the weapon looks at the enemy for that script, reduces the health. But you could have you could swing the club and hit the arm collider, and then keep swinging and hit the chest collider, and then you actually end up killing the enemies really quickly. So I need to do a bit more time on that to really refine it. And I think if I was doing it again, I'd probably use more of either a bow and arrow or like a crossbow. But I really find the bouncing of the enemies is hilarious, because they turn on the ragdoll and the physics. Sometimes you can bat them and they go sky high. But it's amazing what you can find for free. 90% of this is all free assets, free audio, free models. You know, as long as you give them a shout out in the comments or something, like the clock and the steps. This one, I made that one. You saw that when I was doing the intro, the doorway. That's a little bit more custom and specific. But you can get very far with free assets. The key is kind of making them all look like they belong to the same world, because you don't want our assets to all have a kind of different style to them. But it's just a case of spending the time to find the right ones. So as I said, patrons can get hold of this project if they want it and play it and take it apart and see how it all works. But if there's anything specific that someone's seen or wants to know more about how I did, then leave a comment and I will try my best to answer it or do a video if needed. So in the next video, I'm actually going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm actually going to be looking at some assets that I think are essential for creating VR applications and whether they're any better than the XR Interaction Toolkit. So until then, I'll see you later.